Alright, so here's a few things I like to use while making my salsa. This is a rada knife. They're very inexpensive and sharp. Better than anything you're going to find at the local store. This is a vintage citrus juicer that I'm going to use for the limes. If you don't own one, you should get one. I also like to use a strainer, colander, whatever, for the lime juice. This is a pineapple corer. It makes it extremely easy to core the pineapple and slice it. I use a slap chop for the onions and the peppers and the cilantro because I'm extremely lazy and I'm not very good at cutting stuff. And I use a mandolin slicer for slicing the onions. Here's all the produce. I've got 2 red onions. I've got a handful of cilantro, I have 3 limes, I have 3 small habaneros. If they're big, I'll use 2. 1 entire pineapple. I have 6 medium-sized jalapenos. If they're large, I'll use 4. If they're small, I'll use 8 of them. And I have 8 Roma tomatoes over here. This all cost me about $8.50. I like to start with the tomatoes. What I'll do is cut off the top, discard that piece, and then I like to make nice, thin cuts. Then I like to take a piece and cut it horizontally a few times and then vertically so that you have cubes about this size, and I do that to all the tomatoes. Next, I like to cut the onions. I like to use the mandolin slicer to slice the onions first. Make them fairly thin. Like that. This I'll finish off with the knife, cutting it in small pieces. I'm done with the mandolin. Now I like to take the onions and put them in little piles that I can fit inside the slap chop. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to do these ones first. And now I have this nice minced onion. I'm going to put this all in the bowl. I'm going to continue cutting up the rest of this. Alright, now moving on to the jalapenos. I just like to cut the top off and put these in groups to get chopped. I don't like getting the juice on me. Do not de-seed these unless you want your salsa to be not spicy. Now for the habaneros, I just pull these out. That's it. We'll group them all together. Alright, now I got my groups, time to chop. I like my habaneros minced pretty well. Get all that goodness out. Now for the limes, I just cut them in half. Pour it through the colander. Rinse those off. Alright, now I'm going to prepare the pineapple. I'll just cut the top off. Put the core right on the center. And then you got to make sure you aim it right to the bottom. There, feels good. And this handle just comes right off. Turn this over. There we go. There's juice in here. You don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to pour that inside what I've already cut up and then save this rind. This is pretty easy. You just go straight down. Drop it all on one side. And all on one side. Now I'm going to take the knife and cut a small sliver through all these layers. And then pull it out, and it looks just like this. Then I cut that in half, like that. We got a little pineapple stuff hanging out. Anyway, and that's how I make the chunks. In fact, I'm going to use a different knife that's sharper. Now I'm going to cut a piece of this pineapple rind off. This, take this baby, and then you just squeeze it like this. Into the salsa. Now comes the tedious part of picking the leaves off of the cilantro. Now ain't that beautiful? Now you can add salt and pepper to this. Some people like the salt to draw out the juices. I think it's juicy enough. I don't use salt or pepper in mine. This is about a half gallon. This usually lasts me about 2 or 3 days just for my household of 3 people who like to eat salsa. I'm gonna try some now. See how she tastes.